She wasn't there to make a statement, just worn sweats and a quiet demeanor. But the program coordinator snapped, "You can't wear that. It's for active operators." He ordered her to change. Then he saw the forbidden ink. Part 1, The Outsider. The Carolina humidity was a physical weight, pressing down the moment Kate Reilly stepped out of her old Jeep. It was a thick, soupy heat that clung to the skin and muted the drone of cicadas hiding in the pines surrounding Apex training facility. At 40, Kate moved with an economy born from years of purpose, her auburn hair pulled back in a tight, functional bun, revealing faint lines etched around eyes that had seen too much sun and not enough sleep. She wore faded gray sweatpants and a dark, impossibly soft t-shirt, its original markings long since worn away to a ghostly suggestion of what they once were. A simple canvas duffel was slung over a shoulder that bore the memory of heavier loads. She paused, taking in the scene. Gleaming black government SUVs were parked in perfect, sterile rows. Across the manicured lawn, a group of special operations candidates, all muscle and nervous energy, went through warm-up drills. Their voices were sharp, confident, belonging to a world that felt both familiar and infinitely distant. Kate's Jeep, with its patched tire and sun-bleached dashboard, seemed like a relic from another era. As she walked toward the main administrative building, a sleek glass and steel structure that felt more like a corporate headquarters than a military base, the first waves of judgment washed over her. Two administrative aides standing by the door stopped their conversation, their eyes lingering on her worn attire before one whispered something that was lost in the breeze, but the accompanying smirk was universal. Inside, the chilled air was a shock. The quiet hum of servers and the scent of industrial cleaner filled a lobby designed to impress. Here, the judgment was less subtle. A young, cocky tech contractor named Leo, lounging near the reception desk, barely bothered to hide his disdain. He raised his phone, snapping a quick, surreptitious photo of Kate as she stood waiting her turn. With a few taps, the image was fired off into the base-wide group chat, a digital cesspool of gossip and boredom. "Grandma lost on the way to the bingo hall," he typed, a cruel grin spreading across his face. The replies came instantly, a flurry of laughing emojis and piling on jokes. Kate, unaware of the specific mockery but acutely aware of the shift in atmosphere, kept her gaze fixed on the digital roster behind the desk. She could feel the stares, the curious, the dismissive, the contemptuous. The room was full of people who saw a middle-aged woman in old clothes, an anomaly in their high-speed world of peak performance and cutting-edge tech. A man in a sharply tailored suit and a polished Apex civilian staff badge strode out from a side office. His name was Mr. Davison, the program coordinator, and he moved with the brisk, impatient energy of someone who believed his time was more valuable than anyone else's. He scanned the lobby, his eyes briefly flicking over Kate before dismissing her as part of the background scenery, an irrelevant detail in his perfectly managed day. What none of them saw were the fine, silvery scars lacing the knuckles of her hands, or the unnerving stillness in her posture, a body at rest but never truly relaxed. They didn't see the person who had once been a ghost, a whisper in classified reports. They saw what they wanted to see, an outsider, a nobody, a joke. And in the quiet, unforgiving ecosystem of a place like Apex, that was a dangerous thing to be. The group chat pinged again. A new meme had already been made, this one with Kate's face crudely photoshopped onto the body of a cartoon character struggling to lift a tiny dumbbell. The laughter in the room, though quiet, was sharp enough to cut. Part 2, The Confrontation. Mr. Davison's attention was finally drawn to Kate, not by her presence, but by the stifled chuckles from his staff. His brow furrowed in annoyance, his polished facade cracking. He hated disruptions. He walked to the reception desk, his gaze zeroing in on Kate as the source of the unprofessionalism. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked, his tone dripping with a politeness that was more insulting than open hostility. His eyes raked over her, from the worn-out sneakers to the faded t-shirt. It was the shirt that made him pause. Though nearly erased by time, a phantom emblem was still visible under the harsh fluorescent lights, a winged dagger, the symbol of the defunct Special Operations Unit, Task Force Nomad. "This authorization letter is for you?" Davison asked, picking up the paper she had placed on the counter as if it were contaminated. "Yes," Kate replied, her voice even, betraying nothing. "I'm here to volunteer for the evaluation support team." Davison scanned the letter, his lips thinning into a tight line of disapproval. "I see. However, there's a matter of attire." He pointed a manicured finger at her chest. "Facility regulations are quite clear. The display of non-active or decommissioned unit insignia is prohibited. It creates confusion and undermines the uniformity we strive to maintain at Apex." He spoke as if explaining a complex theory to a child. Around them, the lobby had fallen silent. The smirks were now open, expectant. Leo held his phone up, discreetly recording. "That T-shirt," Davison continued, his voice hardening, "is a violation of our dress code. It's a costume. This is an active training facility, not a VFW hall for show and tell." The insult hung in the cold air. For a fleeting moment, a fire sparked in the depths of Kate's eyes, a dangerous, ancient heat, but it was extinguished as quickly as it appeared. She had faced down men with guns and bombs. She would not give this paper pusher the satisfaction of a reaction. She simply waited. Her silence seemed to infuriate him more than any argument could have. He turned to an aide, who quickly produced a stiff, plastic-wrapped polo shirt. It was a generic navy blue, with the words "Apex Staff" embroidered in stark white letters across the chest. "You have two options," Davison announced to the room, his voice resonating with petty authority. "You can change into an approved staff shirt, or you can leave the facility immediately. We have standards to uphold." He held the shirt out to her. It was a public ultimatum, a power play designed to humiliate. Kate looked at the cheap, soulless garment, then back at the man offering it. He was daring her to refuse, to make a scene he could crush with a single call to security. Slowly, deliberately, she reached out and took the polo shirt. She didn't say a word. She simply gave a single, almost imperceptible nod, turned, and walked toward a small, unoccupied bench in the corner of the lobby. The collective gaze of the room followed her like a spotlight. Every eye was on the woman in the faded T-shirt, the relic being forced to shed her history and don the uniform of a faceless subordinate. As she sat down, the quiet satisfaction in Mr. Davison's expression was unmistakable. He had restored order. He had put the outsider in her place. Part 3, The Slow Burn. The stiff, synthetic fabric of the Apex Staff polo shirt felt alien against Kate's skin. It was starchy and impersonal, a cage of corporate compliance. After folding her own T-shirt with a reverence that went unnoticed and tucking it into her duffel bag, she proceeded to the next checkpoint, the entrance to the training grounds. Here, the humiliation took on a new, more tedious form. A young, overzealous security guard, clearly a devoted follower of the base group chat, held up a hand to stop her. "ID and authorization," he said, his voice flat with feigned importance. Kate handed over her documents. The guard studied them for an exaggerated length of time, his eyes flicking from the paper to her face, a flicker of a smirk playing on his lips. He had seen the memes. He was part of the joke. This name isn't clearing on my end," he lied, tapping at his tablet with theatrical slowness. "Gonna have to call this in for secondary verification. You'll need to wait over there." He pointed to a small, isolated patch of concrete with no shade, well away from the main flow of personnel. And so, Kate waited. The Carolina sun climbed higher, beating down on the asphalt and sending shimmering waves of heat into the air. 15 minutes stretched into 30, then 40. Group after group of candidates and staff jogged past, many of them throwing glances her way, a mix of pity, derision, and simple curiosity. The group chat, meanwhile, was on fire. Leo, emboldened by his earlier success, had escalated his efforts. A new meme appeared, Kate's face on a milk carton with the caption, "Missing, last seen waiting for clearance since the Cold War." Another showed her in her new staff polo, with the text, when you order a special operator on Wish.com. Each post was met with a fresh wave of digital laughter. The mockery was no longer just about her age or her clothes, it was about her powerlessness, her forced irrelevance. Kate stood her ground, her posture unwavering. Her patience was a weapon, forged in the frozen mountains of Afghanistan and the sweltering jungles of unnamed countries. She let her mind drift, not to the sting of this petty humiliation, but to other times she had waited. Waiting for a medevac helicopter as a teammate's blood stained the snow. Waiting for an extraction signal as enemy patrols swept the valley below. Waiting for dawn in a water-filled trench, the scent of cordite and damp earth thick in her nostrils. This was nothing. But the slow burn of bureaucracy and social cruelty was effective. She was being isolated, defined by others as a problem, a nuisance. She could feel the narrative hardening around her. She was just a washed-up veteran who couldn't let go, a woman clinging to a past no one cared about. Finally, after nearly an hour, the guard sauntered back over, a look of bored triumph on his face. "All right, they sorted it. You're cleared to proceed." There was no apology. No hint of embarrassment. "Try to have the correct digital clearance next time," he added, a final, parting shot. "Makes things easier on everyone." Kate simply nodded, picked up her duffel bag, and walked through the gate. The stairs followed her, but they were different now. The joke was getting old. Beneath the mockery, a new feeling was beginning to stir in some of the onlookers, a grudging, unspoken respect for her silent, unyielding endurance. Part 4, The Unseen Signal. Once inside the training grounds, Kate found a spot on the far end of a set of metal bleachers, seeking a moment of respite in the sliver of shade they offered. She set down her bag and began a series of slow, deliberate stretches, her body moving with a fluid precision that belied the stiff polo she wore. As she reached her arms overhead, arching her back, the collar of the shirt pulled away from her neck for just a second. Nearby, Master Sergeant Dunn was reviewing a maintenance checklist on a clipboard, his weathered face a mask of concentration. Dunn was a Green Beret, a man who had spent 30 years in the shadows and spoke in sentences as sparse as his salt and pepper hair. He was a liaison to the Apex facility, and he had no time for gossip or drama. But as he glanced up, his eyes, trained to notice details others missed, caught the movement. And then he saw it. Stark and black against the skin of her upper back. It wasn't a decorative flourish or a drunken mistake. It was a symbol, clean and brutal in its simplicity, a stylized raptor claw. And nestled within its grasp were the blocky, unmistakable alphanumeric characters, GT7. Dunn froze mid-stride. The clipboard slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the gravel, the sound deafening in his own ears. His blood ran cold. The air thickened. The casual noise of the bass, the shouting of instructors, the rumble of an ATV, faded into a distant hum. Ghost Talon. The name wasn't spoken. It was a ghost in the system, a mission so deep, so officially denied, that its very existence was a rumor traded only in the most secure chambers by men with the highest clearances. Operation Ghost Talon. Dunn had been a young intelligence analyst at Bragg when the whispers had first trickled back. A catastrophic ambush, a communications blackout, and a small fire team, designated GT-7, that had held a collapsing flank for 36 hours, allowing a high-value asset to be extracted. They were all presumed lost, their names redacted from history, their sacrifice buried under layers of classification. Until now. His heart hammered against his ribs. He looked at the woman on the bleachers, now just sipping from a water bottle. He thought of the memes, the jokes he'd seen on the younger contractors' phones. A wave of hot, profound shame washed over him. Shaking, he retrieved his clipboard and forced himself to walk away, moving toward the privacy of a concrete equipment shed. His movements were stiff, robotic. Inside, away from prying eyes, he pulled out his encrypted satellite phone. His fingers, which could field strip a rifle in the dark, trembled as he keyed in a number he had committed to memory 2 decades ago and had prayed he would never have to use. The line connected with a series of sterile clicks, followed by the dead, weighted silence of a secure command line. "This is Master Sergeant Dunn at Apex," he said, his voice raspy. I have a possible ghost Talon visual confirmation on site." The silence on the other end stretched for an eternity. Then, a voice, clipped and devoid of emotion, crackled back. "Repeat your statement, Master Sergeant." "Visual confirmation of a GT-7 marker," Dunn clarified, his voice steadier now. "Individual is female, profile matches Reilly, K, present as a volunteer." "Repeat, we have a ghost Talon survivor on site." Another pause, this one filled with the faint, frantic sound of keyboards clacking in the background. The voice returned, its tone transformed. The bureaucratic monotone was gone, replaced by a sharp, urgent authority. "Acknowledged, Master Sergeant. Hold your position. Do not engage. Do not let her leave the facility. Command is en route." The line went dead. Dunn stood in the shadows of the shed, the phone still pressed to his ear, the weight of a secret history settling over the entire base like a storm cloud. The game had just changed. Part 5, The Reckoning. The first sign that the world had tilted on its axis was the sudden, pervasive silence. It rolled across the training grounds like a fog, snuffing out conversations and halting drills mid-motion. Then came the vehicle, a single, unmarked black SUV that moved with an unnerving speed and purpose, its tires barely whispering on the asphalt before coming to a hard stop near the administrative building. The doors opened in a synchronized display of efficiency. First, a sharp-featured major, her uniform immaculate. Then, the man who followed her out seemed to suck all the air from the humid afternoon. It was General Vance. 4 stars glittered on his collar. He was the commander of the entire Joint Special Operations Training Command, a man whose face was known from congressional hearings and covert briefings, but who was rarely seen on the ground at a facility like Apex. He was a living legend, and his unscheduled appearance was the equivalent of a lightning strike. He strode directly toward the training field, the crowd of soldiers, contractors, and staff parting before him like the Red Sea. His gaze was locked, a missile seeking its target. He didn't slow until he was standing before the bleachers, his polished boots planted firmly on the gravel just a few feet from Kate Reilly. Mr. Davison, who had been preening near the instructor's tent, scurried over, his face a mask of confusion and sycophantic concern. "General Vance. An unexpected honor, sir. If I had known you were visiting, I would have arranged a proper." Vance cut him off with a single, withering glance that froze the words in his throat. The general's attention was entirely on Kate, who had risen to her feet, her expression calm and unreadable. For a long moment, Vance simply studied her. He took in the cheap polo shirt, the faded sweatpants, and the quiet dignity in her posture. His eyes, sharp and intelligent, seemed to be cataloging 2 decades of unwritten history. "That marking on your back," Vance said, his voice low but carrying across the silent field. "Where did you get it?" The entire base seemed to be holding its breath. Leo, standing in a cluster of other contractors, had his phone out, but for the first time all day, he wasn't recording. His face was pale. Kate met the general's gaze without flinching. "Operation Ghost Talon, sir. Sector 7. Zargan Valley." The words were spoken quietly, but they landed like hammer blows. A muscle in Vance's jaw tightened. A flicker of old pain, a violent memory, crossed his face before it was replaced by something else, something akin to awe. He took a step closer. "My mentor, Colonel Jacobs. He was the asset you were tasked with protecting." His voice was thick with emotion. "He told me about that day. He said angels and ghosts held the line when everyone else was dead or gone. He never knew who you were. The report was buried. You were all listed as lost in action." Kate's lips pressed into a thin line. "We did what we had to do, sir." "Yes, you did," Vance said softly. "You got his team to the extraction zone. He lived another 15 years because of you. He got to see his grandkids grow up. The general's gaze swept across the crowd, landing on Davison, then on the other staff who had scorned her. His eyes were chips of ice. Then, he did something that sent a shockwave through every person watching. General Vance, commander of the most elite training forces in the world, snapped to attention and rendered a slow, perfect, formal salute to the woman in the ill-fitting polo shirt. It was not a gesture of courtesy. It was an act of profound, soul-deep reverence. He held the salute for a long, silent moment before dropping his hand. He turned to his aide, Major Hanson. "Major, see to it that Ms. Reilly's original uniform is returned to her. And you will draft a formal, written apology on behalf of this command for the disgraceful lack of respect she has been shown today." He then fixed his gaze on a mortified Mr. Davison. "Your contract with this facility will be under immediate review. You are dismissed for the day. Get out of my sight." Davison, white as a sheet, simply stammered, "Yes, sir," and practically fled. Vance's voice rose, clear and strong, for all to hear. "Let me be perfectly clear. This woman's honor was forged in fire that would have turned most of you to ash. It is not determined by our regulations. It is not subject to your judgment. She is a part of this army's soul. You will treat her as such." The reckoning was complete. The silence that followed was filled not with fear, but with a new, humbling understanding. Part 6, The Quiet Legacy. The aftermath of General Vance's intervention was a study in contrasts. The oppressive atmosphere of mockery evaporated, replaced by a hushed, awkward reverence. Staff members who had earlier smirked in Kate's direction now couldn't meet her eyes. Leo and his clique of tech contractors had vanished, their digital bravado dissolving in the face of real-world consequence. Major Hanson personally delivered Kate's old t-shirt, neatly folded, along with a crisp envelope containing the formal apology. "The general wanted you to have this, Ms. Reilly," Hanson said, her tone a mixture of professional respect and genuine remorse. "And he asked me to inform you that you have a standing invitation at any facility under his command. The doors are always open." Kate accepted with a quiet nod. As she changed back into her own shirt, her uniform, it felt like reclaiming a piece of her own skin. She found a quiet spot away from the activity, needing a moment to let the day's turmoil settle. Footsteps, hesitant but determined, approached her. It was Private Eva Rostova, a young signals intelligence candidate with bright, curious eyes. She was one of the few who hadn't joined in the mockery, watching the day's events with a troubled silence. "Ma'am," Eva began, twisting a water bottle in her hands. "I hope I'm not bothering you. I saw everything. I wanted to ask, how do you do it? How do you stand there and take it, when everyone is trying to tear you down?" Kate looked at the young soldier and saw a ghost of herself, the same blend of fierce determination and gnawing self-doubt. "You don't not feel it," Kate answered honestly, her voice gentle. "You just learn that your purpose is more important than your pride. They can mock you, they can dismiss you, but they can't take what you've earned unless you let them. Sometimes, the only way to win is to endure. To show them that you are still standing when their noise fades away." Eva absorbed the words, her expression shifting from uncertainty to resolve. "I get scared," she admitted in a near whisper. "Scared that I'm not tough enough, that I don't belong here." "Everyone is scared," Kate replied, a faint smile touching her lips. "The trick isn't to stop being scared. The trick is to move anyway. Your strength isn't in the absence of fear, Private. It's in what you do despite it." Later, during the final physical evaluation, a grueling 5-mile run, Kate took her place at the front of the formation. She wore her faded task force nomad shirt, the winged dagger a silent testament to her history. No one said a word. She set a steady, relentless pace, her breathing even, her stride powerful. She didn't shout encouragement or look back. She simply led. The recruits followed, their gazes fixed on the woman in front of them. They were no longer chasing a time, they were trying to keep pace with a legend. Eva ran just off Kate's shoulder, her face set with newfound determination. Farther back, a humbled security guard and several admin staff who were required to participate struggled to keep up, their earlier arrogance burned away by lactic acid and shame. As Kate crossed the finish line, she didn't stop. She turned and waited, nodding quietly to each exhausted soldier who completed the run, offering a silent acknowledgement of their effort. When she finally drove her jeep away from Apex, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the grounds. She knew her story would remain. It would become a new piece of institutional lore, a cautionary tale for the arrogant and an inspiration for the uncertain. It would be told to new recruits for years to come, a reminder that the truest uniforms are worn on the inside, and that some legacies are written not in regulations, but in silent, unbreakable courage. What part of Kate's story resonated with you the most? We've all faced moments where we felt underestimated or unseen. Share a time you witnessed quiet strength overcome loud judgment in the comments below. We ask that you please comment with respect for everyone's experiences. If this story moved you, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of honor and resilience. And don't forget to check out the videos on your screen, we picked them just for you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.